remember Erastus Asari Donko has produced a documentary which would air later this evening fully. But here are excerpts. We'll bring you excerpts of that, but I want you to have a feel of what we're talking about.
Sometimes by biological parents. Ghana's Children's Act of 1998, Act 560, stipulates no person shall subject a child to torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. There are other fine provisions in Ghana's statute books which spell out ideal ways and the right environment to raise children in. The big question, however, is, do these laws really protect children in a society where they do not have a voice at all? 3 years ago, Junior was born to a teenage mother and a young man in his early 20s at Kwangoma in the Achuma-Kwangoma district on the periphery of Kumasi. His story and those of others in the Ashanti region perhaps measure how much premium some Ghanaians place on the protection of children, undoubtedly the future of this country. Junior's father traveled to Nigeria in search of greener pastures where the baby was still breastfeeding. He had instructed the teenage mother to hand baby Junior over to a couple, Nana and Rita Uti, who worked as undertakers at North Centreso in Kumasi. Physical abuse of 2-year-old Junior came to our attention when Nana and Rita rushed him to the Komfanoti Teaching Hospital with a deteriorating wound on the left arm. Nana and his wife claimed the child had been hurt and dumped on them by her biological mother. The story sounded unconvincing to health authorities, who got them arrested. Close examination of Junior's body revealed marks of suspected physical abuse. Junior was reportedly whipped, slapped, branded a witch. The worst is how he ended up with severe burns to his hand. Eyewitnesses say his supposed guardians used red-hot iron to burn him, though the couple denied this. It was, however, established they applied salt solution to the wound and wrapped it with rags. Doctors had to amputate all 5 damaged fingers to prevent further deterioration. For 7-year-old Ajua, her body bears a map of torture. She endured months of cruelty from her father.
Unbelievable, but this is not just the only story that Erastus is telling. There are many more of such absolutely heartbreaking, because these are little children that we're talking about. We're going to put a spotlight on this issue this morning when Erastus joins us later on this morning.
And talking about children, we earlier told you about our colleague Erastus Asari Donko, who also will be having his Hotline documentary premiering, but more so focusing on the realization that young children, if not toddlers or children, are brought to medical facilities, sometimes with concussions and various forms of fracture, with which medical practitioners believe as a result of constant and abuse from either their parents, their guardians, etc. It's a huge issue which apparently has not been discovered until now. But that's why it's a focus of Erastus Asari Donko's Hotline documentary, Mawabi.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I've been thinking about is, even if you report these incidents, if doctors realize in the colon police or social services, social welfare, what happens to that. I guess we'll get to know all these sides later this evening. But let's speak to Erastus Asari Donko, who joins us live from Love FM in Kumasi this morning. Erastus, good morning to you. If you can hear me, I hope you're well.
Good morning, Mamavi. I'm well, by His grace.
We thank God. So, first of all, tell us exactly where you're located. I know you're in the Love FM building.
Yes, exactly. This is Bomso in Kumasi, and behind me is the Bomso Street.
Nice. Okay, Erastus, you produced this documentary really that brought you to Accra not too long ago. So tell us what Tortured Innocence, the title of this documentary, what is this about really?
Well, the title is Tortured Innocence. And we are talking about children so defenseless who have been abused physically. In some cases, I would say they've been tortured for a period spanning 2 to 3 years. And some of them have been maimed, some have died. And we're talking about a culture of impunity, in fact, what we find in our society where children are not protected. And despite the noise being made about protecting children, becoming people who are championing for children, on the ground, the issue is different. Some people think these are our own children, we can punish them corporally the way we want. But to what extent can you punish your own child? Is it by immersing his or her hand in hot boiling water, and sometimes putting it on hot charcoal to burn it because they stole something? And then we're also looking at institutions that are very weak. In fact, you look at the social welfare department, it's so under-resourced to the extent that even staff in there cannot afford to even move around and help these innocent children. We're talking about weak institutions on the ground, which is encouraging this type of practice. And so this documentary is about the future of our country, our children, some of whom are being maimed, tortured, beaten, and some of them defiled.
Rastos, I think it's the bit about the institutions, and I wonder what you found, whilst doing the story. Because one of the things you talk about is doctors, for instance, at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, who have realized some of these things. What does a doctor do when they kind of have the inclination that this child has perhaps been abused? What do they do? Who do they call?
Well, if you heard Dr. Plangerul, who is a pediatrician, and the account she gave, these were babies, toddlers, who in fact came with multiple fractures to the head. And it looked like somebody has slammed their head against walls several times. And when this happens, she was supposed to report to the authorities involved, that is Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit. But if you listen to what she said, after reporting it to them, even some of them said, we don't have a vehicle to even come to Komfanochi to be able to investigate this. And when they finally came, nobody was arrested, no investigation was conducted, nothing happened, and perpetrators of this crime went scot-free. Some of the children became vegetables till they died. In fact, one of them was transferred to a home. She grew up to a point, but she couldn't speak, she couldn't do anything, she died. And no consequence at all was brought to bear. And it's not like these institutions were lying. Indeed, the social welfare department who came in could not do anything because they do not even have a vehicle to move around. They don't have stipends to even help personnel to investigate these issues. And so it makes it difficult for medical personnel when they find these issues to be able to report is one, and then for institutions to take action is another.
Erastus, just hang in there because you made reference to Dr. Planch. We haven't quite heard her because we haven't exactly played the excerpts ahead of this documentary. So I want us to just pause. We want to watch and listen, and we will come back to you and continue this conversation. So first, here are excerpts of that Hotline documentary that fully premieres later this evening, produced by Erastus Asaridonko.
Kwabena told police he was only instilling discipline in his daughter. Kwabena further says Ajua is a witch on whose chest sometimes he sees two pairs of eyes. The traumatized girl told me her father put her leg on a platform and stepped on it, breaking it.
I am insurance and
I traveled to Asiofua Achiase on the Barakese Road, where the abuse occurred. Kwabene's girlfriend and other neighbors have been silent over the persistent abuse until he threatened to kill the girlfriend over money he claimed Adjoa had stolen. The woman's crime was that she had picked the wounded little girl to Suntreso Hospital in Kumasi. Shocked by the extent of harm inflicted on the girl, Dr. Ashura Bakari, a pediatrician at the hospital, alerted police.
But when we look at the child, I realized it wasn't just about writing report. The child was actually not well. The child has sustained injuries. He had swellings on the legs, swelling on the arms, and he had like injuries with the different or various healing stages.
She was taken to Kumasi Children's Home for care because the biological mother was not in a position to take her in. "11-year-old Priscilla Akoto exudes energy, always beaming with smiles. She had dreams of becoming a nurse. Late October 2015, she went in and out of hospital for treatment of what relatives saw as abnormal pains. With little improvement, after months, doctors at Agogo Hospital detected she had been defiled. Priscilla later told her mother, a staff of the Konongo office of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Charles Kofi Aka, sexually abused her on several occasions. Many a time, inhuman treatment of children like Junior is carefully hidden by the perpetrators, parents, relatives, and guardians.
So this is just a tip of the iceberg, if you like, because Erastus also uncovers and shares a lot more stories in this documentary. So Erastus, essentially, what do you want the people of Ghana and really beyond, what do you want us to know whilst you're retelling these heartbreaking stories? I mean, I can't stand it when a child is abused. Whatever the abuse, the nature of the abuse is, what do you want us to do in the end, really?
I want us to take children's issues more seriously. In fact, we have started doing something. I have seen some promos on TV. I want Ghanaians to know that we are not doing enough. There's more room for improvement. We can start by improving our child welfare systems. The social welfare department, for example, has been denied resources for a long time. It has virtually become a white elephant in fighting child issues. The domestic violence and victims unit needs to be equipped, both staff strength and even equipment and other things to move with. We must strengthen our resolve to protect children in this country. We must be more serious. And so this is the accounts of a few children to tell us that on the ground, the story is still there of children who are being physically abused. And it's time to rise up as a country and protect our future.
Erastus, let's go back to the little girl who was sharing the story of how wood was used to break her leg. So who does she live with now?
Well, currently she's at the Kumasi Children's Home. We had some donation from our benevolent listeners, one of them, in fact, who wanted us to mend the leg. Doctors are still considering whether to operate on that leg now or allow it to grow for a while so we could see whether it will mend by itself. So we are still on that one. The American Relief Center has been supporting this girl very much. So currently she's still at the Kumasi Children's Home.
Is this a home where people can adopt these children? I mean, what kind of care and attention is given?
In fact, the Kumasi Children's Home has been set up in a form of a family space. And so one woman looks after about 10 children, and she sees those children as her own. So they've been divided into families in the house, and that is where she belongs currently. She belongs to one of these families. I've been visiting her. She's doing quite well. But the mother currently, because the long term, they are considering giving her over to integrating her back into her own family. But that, I think, is impossible for now, because the biological mother is not even in a position financially to be able to take care of this child. So yes, we can talk about adoption if somebody is really interested and is willing to give this child a very good home so that she can get a very good future.
Erastus, is this documentary in 2 parts? Are we seeing all this evening?
In fact, we are not seeing all this evening. We have a second part which you've not seen yet. It's also about girls who have been defiled to the extent that all the victims I used in my documentary are dead. And nothing really happened to the perpetrators, supposed perpetrators, I must say. There are other girls who have been forced into prostitution in parts of Kumasi. That's also part of the second part of the documentary. So there's a lot more in part 2 of Tortured Innocence.
So this is 6:30, premiering this evening right here on JoyNews, Erastus. How long did it take you to put this documentary together?
Close to 4 years, I must say.
Really?
And I must also mention, yes, I must mention that some of these cases we had to follow up on some of these cases in court. Some of them are still in court, in fact.
Okay.
And we are the principal witnesses. It has spanned, some of them have spanned about 2 years. And in getting justice, that's another story to tell. Getting justice for children who have been abused in Ghana is a whole journey. And so it took us quite a while to be able to put this together.
Wow. And in part 2, you say all the girls that you speak to, that we see, have passed on. Do we know why? What happened?
I mean, the defiled girls, those who were defiled, yes, they all died. In fact, one thing led to another. The abuse, we found out, lasted for a long period of time. And they could not tell their parents. And so when they finally got into complications, serious complications, some of them nervous breakdown and all that. They couldn't even speak. That was when they started telling their parents that, yes, this person defiled me, that person defiled me, but then it was too late to save them. Doctors tried their best, but they gave up the ghost.
Erastus, we will leave it here. We wait to see the full documentary later this evening at 6:30. And then we will join you tomorrow, because we want to highlight on, you know, what we will also feature in the evening of Tuesday. But for now, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much, Erastus Asare-Donkor, and congratulations. This is massive work that you've done over a 4-year period. We're grateful to you. Thank you, Erastus Asare-Donkor. That's our colleague with Love FM in Kumasi, and his documentary will be premiered this evening. This is unbelievable. I don't know, Tortured Innocence. These are very young and fragile, very innocent children. And somebody saying there, Roland, that they saw 2 eyes on the chest of the child. Shouldn't that be your problem? Why should a child be labeled as a witch because you're seeing double?
It means that the person himself is psychologically
having
a problem, and that person needs some psychological examination. And that's where we are as a country, because constantly, especially if you're related or you have children, you get to know the children are their wits' end at the stage of vulnerability, when constantly they are tortured, and because you're an adult or are tortured by adults, do not have the power to overcome that situation. And in many of such instances, you know that they are overpowered because they don't have the strength.
Yeah, they're only
children. They don't have the wherewithal. They are kids. They expect
and they also don't have a voice.
Yes, they expect to be treated as such. It's a huge problem. It takes a lot of empathy to know how children feel.
Yeah.
And constantly to tell people you don't need to torture children for you to perhaps make a point, as far as the disciplinary or the deterrent aspect is concerned.
Yeah.
You can go to some extent to do some form of perhaps if it's some deterrent punishment or of a sort, but to do physical torture is one of the things that we don't have to accept in our society. I hope that we'll take some lessons, but it seems to be a constant thing that we face daily.
This is sad.
It's very
We're
sad.
getting some messages on the back of what we've played to you. This is from Betty. Betty's in Sunyani, and Betty says, why should a child suffer for the hatred you have for your partner or a frustrated life? So sad this morning. Labor pains, sleepless nights, and someone treats a child like this. God have mercy. Absolutely, Betty in Sunyani. So, you know, we will wait for you to see the entire documentary this evening. We'll definitely have conversations on the back of that. Sometimes it's because a certain prophet somewhere, a certain pastor has said that a child that you're living with is a witch. And so that kind of also develops that kind of hatred, that thing in you. Somebody prompts you and tells you that the child that you're living with is this or that, and they are the cause of your woes, and then suddenly you turn your attention to you know, somebody who is totally innocent, somebody who is, you know. So we will have conversations on the back of this. We have to talk to ourselves, because this happens in a lot of homes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it happens in a lot of
perhaps
homes.
we can let in our audience to also get to share some stories with us if they can.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
we'll see what we can do. But you can also get interactive throughout the rest of the morning on this subject and many subjects we'll be looking at. We'll be speaking to the Executive Secretary of the Petroleum Consumers Association of Ghana. COPEC is having Dankanamwa raising some allegations that they believe, after extensive investigations, that the Bost MD is said to be underpricing some fuel that is sold to either a company or a number of companies, and they believe that some underhand dealings may be ongoing. We'll be speaking to him very soon live from a location just around us, so we'll see what we can get out of that ongoing story. It's dominated the headlines. Many radio and TV stations have been speaking to him as well, so we'll get to speak to him.
Yeah, especially also because he says he's been given 3 days to live. There are people who are threatening his life, apparently. So we'll hopefully we're able to get him real soon, and then we'll talk to him. But something else I will be talking about is an incident that unfolded at Chams. Chams is inside Paloma. It has to do with Stonebwoy, and for some reason it's got a link to Xylophone Media. We will uncover all the things associated with it also here on the show. We'll take a breather. We'll be back with a lot more. Stay with us.